Hello everybody and welcome back to the Leeds Lens for your Leeds United news/transfer news. We've got a few stories to get into today. First of all, we're going to be looking at Jayden Bogle and a possibility of Everton swooping in there and taking Jayden off our hands. Obviously, it looks like this is going to be more a summer deal rather than January transfer deal, but we'll talk all about that and potentially a reason why maybe actually moving on Jayden Bogle might not be the worst decision in the world. So a bit about that. We're also tonight going to talk a bit about Gary Neville has been talking on his podcast, the Gary Neville Show, whatever it's called, the Gary Neville podcast, about Leeds United and about where Leeds United are at this moment in time. So we'll talk about what he's said, and we're also obviously going to give a bit of an update on the relegation battle, where it is at this moment in time. And to be honest with you, I feel like I could almost sit back, enjoy, sit in my chair and love this great time at this moment, because it feels like for the moment we've got a bit of respite with Leeds United climbing 6 points and being 6 points above, of course, West Ham. And the main focus actually of that segment is all going to be rounding West Ham. Obviously, Forest do play against Fulham tonight, or Fulham versus Forest, so we'll keep up to date with that as well as we're getting on. But before we get into all of that, of course, if you could help the channel by dropping a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and that's for the last few days. But truthfully, the likes are down, lads. So if you could help me out and drop a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, it does massively help the channel. Anyway, let's start by talking around about Jayden Bogle, as you can see on the right-hand side. Jack says, evening, Scott. Evening to you too, Jack. Nice to see you in the chat. But Bogle basically has been finding interest from Everton, like we said at the start of the video. And this, as I said, this is a report that's coming in from, it started from Team Talk, and truthfully, if it was just Team Talk saying this, probably leave it alone, because their hit rate, for the fair to them, is not fantastic. But it has been picked up by other outlets. I think Football Insider have talked a bit about it as well. And I thought it was something to mention now on the show. Maybe this won't happen, maybe this will happen. But I think when you look at it on a fundamental basis, and I look at it and go, do I think this is something that could happen at some point? Do I think Everton do potentially want Jayden Bogle? Yes, I probably do. They're currently playing Jake O'Brien at right back, of course, who's a makeshift player playing out there. David Moyes, we know in the summer, went for a right back as well. They've struggled for a right back for a number of years now, Everton. Obviously, Jayden Bogle's made that step to the Premier League, as we're all aware of as Leeds United fans, and done really well so far this season, and been one of our sort of standout players. And the players last season who have made the step up, you look at Hims, you look at Rodon, you look at Ampadu. I think some of these players are all sort of the ones that have made the best step up from the Championship to the Premier League. But for me, I've got quite an interesting take on this, because as I said, first of all, let's rule this out. This can't be done in the January transfer window. And the report does say that Jayden Bogle wouldn't actually be bothered about moving in the January transfer window. He's quite happy at Leeds United, and he's not, as I said, not looking to move his future on from Leeds United anytime soon. And it all said basically both clubs are accepting that this is probably not going to be a January move. So if we remove that from the conversation and we talk more about the summer, people are going to be surprised with this take from me, actually. But I actually don't think Leeds United moving on Jayden Bogle would be the worst thing that could possibly happen to the football club. I really don't think it would be the worst case scenario. There's a few reasons for this. The first reason why is because we know Leeds United are constantly stuck on this PSR climate nonsense, where basically we're struggling to spend because we haven't brought enough money into the football club, and we've basically been buying over the last few years. And I think when you look at sort of Leeds United at this moment, for me, we can't just do this endless cycle of buy. There has to be someone going out the other way. And when I look at Jayden Bogle, yes, I don't want to lose Jayden Bogle. I have no interest in losing Jayden Bogle, but actually, in terms of PSR standpoint, he is a PSR player. We bought him for about 5 million. I think we put him in about a 4-year contract, so appreciated by 2 years of his deal, or maybe even 2 years of his deal, of course, this summer. And actually, at that point, he'd be worth 2.5 million on the book spreadsheet. And you look at it and you go, is there a situation where if you could get, say, 30 to 40 million pounds, I don't think it'd be much as 40, but if we say 30 million pounds for Jayden Bogle, which I think is about market level for him at this moment in time, do you look at it and go, let's bank the 25 million pound profit while it's there? Because I think something that Leeds United have been a failure of in the recent years, and we've talked about this regarding Melia, etc., is we haven't sold at the peak of the powers. And Jayden Bogle this summer, having had a good season in the Championship, will be in the Premier League, should I say, will be at the peak of his powers. And is this an opportunity to actually, as I said, bring someone in at right back, get some cash in for Jayden Bogle, and potentially use that obviously to put into the rest of the team and allow Leeds United this summer transfer window to spend more money. Because as good as Jayden Bogle's been for us, I don't think he's completely irreplaceable. I think we can get another Jayden Bogle out there on the market. So for me, as I said, no in January at all. We shouldn't be selling in January, no doubt about it. I don't think it'll happen in January. But in the summer, if we got the right money for it and we got market value price for me, or even a bit above market value price, I don't think Leeds United losing Jayden Bogle, as I said, if it is for a good fee, and obviously it massively benefits Leeds United in terms of PSR standpoint, would be the worst thing that could possibly happen to us, in my personal opinion. Jack says, if we stay up, then they need to go up a level that Bogle probably isn't at. It's harsh as he's been fantastic, but there's no room for sentiment. Interesting that, Jack. I disagree with this, actually. I think Bogle can reach the levels of where Leeds United are trying to go. I think everything so far at the football club that he's done, he started the Championship, everyone questioned him, can he even play at that level? I think he really showed at that point that he could play at the Championship level. Then for me, he's made a really good step up to the Premier League. And I think as the team progresses, actually, if you were to keep Jayden Bogle and he wasn't to move on, I do think he could build with the football club. I really do. I see a lot in Jayden Bogle. I think he's better defensive than people say. I think he's good. I think he's really good, as we know, going forward as well. And he's suited to this right wing back role as well, massively well. But also can play right back. So I like Jayden Bogle as a player. It's nothing against the player. It's more in terms of this summer, do Leeds United potentially need to do a PSR sale? And it doesn't have to be Bogle, but if he's got the interest there, then it could be him. But maybe you look at moving Tanaka on, which again, Tanaka's my favourite player, so I don't really want to see that happen either. But something might have to give. Maybe it's a Nonto, etc. Someone potentially we are going to have to cash in at some point. We know we don't like selling any of these players because fundamentally these PSR players who are good for PSR, all of them really, to be honest, are in our best team and some of our best players. Hence, they're in this position in terms of the PSR climate. But in the same breath, it can't just be a case of buy, never sell. Eventually, you've got to play a trade. And in the market we're in at this moment, we've got to play a trade. So as I said, losing Bogle for me wouldn't be the worst thing in the world as long as it's in the summer and he's replaced properly. Richard says the sentimentalists will come for you. Yeah, they probably will, mate. They probably will. But as I said, I don't think I've said anything too controversial there, in my opinion. I'm saying we get good money for Bogle. I'm saying we massively help our PSR counting sheets. And as I said, I don't think if you got really good money for Bogle, he's completely irreplaceable, in my personal opinion. Sebastian says, name a better right back than Bogle Leeds is able to buy. Well, I'd have to come up with that at a later date, mate. Obviously, Bogle was to do it. But as I said, again, do you not think that Leeds United at some point it will be beneficial to Leeds United to cash in terms of some of these players who have got these massive PSR wiggle rooms, which the likes of Nontos, Tanakas, Bogles do? Because I do think at some point, I think in the summer, fundamentally, one of them potentially will have to go to help Leeds United with the PSR climate that they're in. Yes, it will be the new season of the PSR year, and yes, it will start a new 3-year period, but it can't just always be buy. Some of the best clubs that Leeds United are aiming to be like at this moment in time, I'm looking at Brighton's, unfortunately, I'm looking at Brentford, all these teams that we're looking at some point, their best thing is that they play a trade, and at some point, Leeds United are going to have to join that and play a trade as well, in my opinion. But it's all about getting the best price if we are going to do that. He has surprised me this season, to be fair, hasn't looked out of place in the league. Yeah, that's my feeling. Easy says, it never ceases to disappoint me how some Leeds fans will throw players under the bus but treat the manager like he's more important than Leeds. It's nothing to do with the manager, this. It's absolutely nothing to do with the manager at all. I don't even know how the managers come up in this, in debate, if I'm being totally honest. And it's not about throwing Jayden Bogle under the bus at all. I'd be more than happy keeping him. But it's literally down to PSR. If PSR didn't exist, I would never, ever want to sell Jayden Bogle. It's nothing to do with that at all. It's a simple, if Leeds United can sell Jayden Bogle for, say, £30 million, for example, bank 27.5 million based on where he would be in terms of a book value, then it would allow Leeds United to potentially go in the market and spend even more than that and maybe put that into 3 players when you look at payments of players. And that's the reason why it might make sense to do that. As I said, I know it's going to be controversial. I knew it when I said it, but this is my feeling on it, because it can't just always be buy. We'd have had the same conversation, by the way, after the first season with Melier in the Prem, and everyone, including myself, would have said, no, don't sell, and look what happened. So I'm not saying that's going to happen to Bogle. I'm saying at some point, it can't just be buy. We've got to play a trade. Maybe you guys don't think Bogle is the player to play a trade, and that's fine, but somebody of a PSR who is a PSR player for us, potentially at some point is going to have to be player traded. And I guess that's up to you guys who you want that to be. But it's not about throwing under the bus Jayden Bogle at all. Nothing to do with that at all. He's had a great season. Richard says, you will got to put Pascal in that bracket as well. Yeah, you have. He's another one. Sebastian says, Leeds need to sell in the summer, for sure. Get rid of the players who are not playing. Yeah, that's all good, Sebastian. But as I said, the problem with that is that they're not worth any money. So when we talk about selling players, everyone comes to me and goes, we need to sell Jack Harrison. We need to sell Melier. We need to sell Gruev. Fine. These players aren't going to generate Leeds United loads of money, though. That's the problem. So, as I said, we need to move on players that actually you are going to be able to move for a certain amount of time. That's the difference, in my opinion. Further, the recruitment needs to be right after you sold better players. Exactly, Sebastian. And as I said, I don't want to sell Bogle and just have Justin. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm saying if we did have to move Bogle on at some point, or someone like him, as I said, if it's Tanaka, Nonto, someone that's a PSR player for us, fundamental, who we bought for a certain fee, and now is worth maybe 5-10 times more than we actually paid for them, which Bogle is in terms of a book sheet, someone like that might have to go in the summer. And as I said, that isn't the worst case scenario. If you replace correctly and do what Brighton's have done and do what Brentford's have done and do what the clubs that we aspire to be at this moment in time have done, then that can be the situation. Let's have a look at some more guys' comments, but it's not going down. It's going like a lead balloon, this conversation. I'd hate to say it, but you have to sell when the stock is high, but we need to replace it, says Lee Todd. Yeah, I agree, mate. That's my standpoint. As I said, it's nothing to do with me not liking Bogle or any of this conversation. That is far from where I'm at with it at all. Further recruitment needs to be right after you've sold your better players. Exactly. No, mate. Bogle stays. You need to keep better players than had better players to the squad. Forget PSR. You've lost, John. As soon as you said forget PSR, mate, you've lost me, because it's such an important thing in the modern game. The reason we can't just buy in the summer we just had is because PSR is limiting us. So when you say forget PSR, it's like saying, oh, let's just forget about the defence. This is a fundamental part of how you play a trade and what you've got to do. That's the difference. Scott, we're in the Premier League. 25 million is nothing. It's not, as I said, it's not to do with, I'm on about more like 30 to 40 million for the record, easy, but okay. But in the same record, it's not about that. It's about the fact that the way PSR works, if you can sell a player and bank on your books a huge fee, like £30 million would be for Leeds United, if they could do that with Bogle, which is where I'd be looking at in terms of the transfer fee if you were going to do it, in terms of you get maybe 40 million, something like that for him, that would be fantastic in terms of a book sheet for Leeds United, and would allow, the benefit would be is, if you could sell him, you might be able to finance that into periods of time, into 3 players who you're paying 10 million that summer for, and you might end up with a better scenario. That's the point. So is the 30 million better spent on 3 players who are all worth 30 million, who you put 10 million down for that summer, than it is for Leeds United doing it in a different way and just keeping Jaden Bogle? That's the point. John Pepper says, sell Perot, Gruev, all PSR then. That's all good, mate, but they're not going to earn any money. That's the point. As I said, I said this about 5 minutes ago, so I don't really want to repeat myself too much, but everyone we do this conversation always says Harrison, Melier, Perot, Gruev. None of these players earn big money like Jaden Bogle will do. None of them do that. So that's the situation. As I said, I didn't think this conversation would go down like, I think it would go down like a lead balloon, but it's not. It's just an accounting situation. That's all it is. We're not one of the best clubs in the country at this moment, regardless of what people think, and I don't think anyone thinks this. We're not one of the best clubs in the country, and when you're in that situation, you have to play a trade. You have to do that. That's how you make your way up the league. Look at all the clubs; they all play a trade. That's what we do. Leeds should not be in a selling club. Unfortunately, mate, we're going to have to be until you get to that level. That's what you've got to do. Scott, with respect, none of us know what the finances are. We do, mate, because they get published every single season at the end of the season. So we categorically do. They literally have to, because Leeds United are a public company. They have to show their accounts to the rest of to everybody. So we see them every single season. So it just isn't true. John says Leeds should not be a selling club. It's the modern game, sadly, says Jack. Exactly. Leeds should be a selling club. I completely agree, Richard. As I said, this selling club stuff people won't like, and I understand it, because My dad's of an era where, as I said, Leeds United were one of the best teams in the country. I'm not from that era, admittedly, but that's where my dad was. And Leeds United were winning league titles. And at that point, when you're going for league titles, you don't need to sell your best players. It's not how it works. When you're not one of them teams, unfortunately, to get to them teams, you've got to build. And the way you build is you constantly buy players, sell them for more, then you buy a better player, sell him for more, and you keep going up and up and up. So you might start when you get into the league and buy Goodmanson for £10 million. Then you sell Goodmanson for £30 million in a few years' time when he levels up. Then you buy a new £30 million player, turn him into a £60 million player, then buy a 60 and turn him into a 90, and that's how you make your way up the division. Okay, tell me how much we can spend in January. We don't see that until the end of the season, but we'll probably have something around £5 million. But we don't see that exact sum until the end of the season. So we only get to see it once a year, but we do see it. Anyway, that's the Bogle conversation. I didn't think that'd be as extreme as it was, but you guys really like Bogle, which is, as I said, fair because he's a good player. But it's not to do with Bogle as a player anyway. Anyway, let's move on to what Gary Neville said. So Gary Neville's been talking today. And he's been talking sort of about Leeds United and where they're at. And he's basically saying what a lot of us were saying, which is that Leeds United were in a position, obviously, a few weeks ago, and everybody knows this, that where Leeds United were looking like they were probably going to end up going down. We were in a bad position. There was a lot of calls for the manager to be sacked. It was going in a bad way, as we all know. We were starting to get cut adrift. And he was saying at that point, the likes of West Ham's, Fulham's, Forest, etc., probably were all looking at it and going, they're the club that are going to be relegated. And if I'm being totally honest, and a lot of you guys were saying the same in the chat at the time, I thought we were going to be that club. I agreed with them all. But the movement in terms of social media, in terms of pundits, all people who seem to know anything about football, or in some cases don't, but have an opinion on it, seem to basically going towards Leeds United being relegated from the division. Now, what he's now saying is that basically, and this is where we're at, is that we've basically now dragged the rest of these football clubs into a fight. So we're talking Fulham's here. We're definitely talking West Ham's, as we know, we're 6 points clear of them. We're talking Nottingham Forest's. We're talking Brentford's. This Leeds United form, and the reason it's been so important, like we've talked about, is it's given us a chance of staying up, but not just giving us a chance. We've dragged all these clubs into it now, and they're part of the fight. And that is basically what Gary Neville's saying. Now that we've dragged them all in, and they should all be worried because Leeds United are basically on a charge at this moment in time. He also sort of went on to say that at the start of the season, he felt it'd be Burnley, Leeds and Wolves that have got relegated. And he says he's not that sure on Leeds anymore as well. So he's sort of seen the performance that Leeds United have shown and basically saying that, look, that's where Leeds United are going. And I think this is where I can agree with it. Truthfully, in terms of where I'm at with Leeds who are going to stay in the league or not, I'm still worried about it. I still look at the team. I still look at the teams around us. I still look at January and think that's going to be a problem for Leeds because we just can't spend what the other clubs can spend. We've said it a lot of times. I look at West Ham. I think they're looking at, obviously, Jorgen Strand Larsen. I think, God, he's in my opinion, quite a good striker. If they bring someone like him in who can play every single week, which we know Karen Wilson can do, they could start to pick up results. So I don't think we're out of this yet, which is why obviously the Sunderland game will be so important for Leeds United, why this next period of time will be so important for Leeds United, and why every single game is like a cup final for Leeds. Because I do think we're pushing up for our way. I still maintain that maybe we're going to play in a certain way, we can get results in this division. We scored 4 set pieces at the weekend, and maybe that can be a way forward for us. We've now scored the most set pieces in the division. I still believe though that we are, in terms of a squad calibre, I still think we're one of the weaker teams in the division. I've said it all season. I don't disbelieve that. As I said, I think you can put us in a style that can work, but fundamentally, I still think these 4 games haven't just completely changed my opinion on it. I still think, in terms of on the ball, I still think we're not one of the better teams, but we're showing a style that's working at the moment. My slight worry is still with it all, though, is that we are becoming very, very set-piece dependent. We've now scored 50% of our goals from set pieces. And if that was to dry up at some point, which I think it will do, like with set pieces, you naturally go through times where you become really dominant on set pieces for a bit, then you get figured out a bit, then you come back to being really dominant again from set pieces, and you sort of go through a mould. We've seen it with Arsenal as well, where they go through stages where they're scoring every week from them, then they go through stages where they don't score for a few months. When that starts to dry up for Leeds, can Leeds United create enough chances in open play to keep scoring the same amount of goals? Because let's be honest, yes, scoring 4 goals against Palace was fantastic. We're not going to score 4 set-piece goals every week, are we? And I don't think we'll probably end the season with 50% of our goals coming from set pieces, if I'm being totally honest. So we are going to have to find a way, obviously, to create more chances through open play as well, which I think is obviously important because we are quite low in terms of open play goals at this moment. But obviously, we're playing into the style of play that we've got. So that's why I'm still a bit sort of, I don't know, back and forth with it, if I'm being totally honest. But that's where I'm at this moment. If I have continued with his defensive tactics, would have been relegated. I think we're still playing defensive ways, if I'm being honest. I just think the way we build out now is a different sort of way in terms of we're obviously just playing long. We're playing up to the big men. We're using a lot of long throw-ins more than we did at the start of the season and much better on them. We're much better from set pieces at the start of the season. I don't think fundamentally it's about, I mean, we are now playing 3 centre-halves, which we were at the start of the season. So you could argue there's more defensive players on the pitch at this moment. So I don't think fundamentally that's a huge changer, if I'm being honest. I mean, we won the game against Chelsea, and we had 30% of ball. So, as I said, it's still a defensive approach, but I think it's got to be at times because I don't think the squad's good enough to not do that, if I'm being honest. But that's fine. As I said, I'm not. This is not me. Obviously, it's going to come across like I'm slagging off Leeds. It's not. I understand why we're in the position we're in. We came up and we didn't have a lot of money to spend. We probably needed 200 million quid, and we only had 100 million to spend. So it's not. As I said, I don't massively blame the 49ers. I don't blame the squad. I don't think the recruitment's been awful. I just think fundamentally it was always going to be difficult when you come up with a really, really top-end championship squad, which we had, and you try to turn it into a Premier League squad with 100 million. That was always going to be difficult. So I understand why we're in the position we're in. And it's not really anyone's fault. You could blame PSR if you want to blame anything. Let's have a look. Spoke to Harry Gray today and told him to think twice about City or Leeds away. I've seen that. I don't think there's much truth in Harry Gray with the Man City stuff, to be honest. And I know it's been said at £40 million, and which I get, but I don't see City paying 40 million right now for a player I just don't think they'll do that, if I'm being honest. Leeds is a real team. You can buy an exceptional players for a lot of money, but it's not a guarantee of success. 100%, Sebastian. Fulham with Kevin, for example. Of course this can change, Yeah, I agree. As I said, I don't, and that's how we're doing so well, Sebastian, because we're getting the best out of playing a certain way, in my personal opinion, and that's what's working for Leeds United. And one thing I will always say with Leeds United is, because I think West Ham have got players like Jared Bowen, which we probably don't have of that calibre. But one thing Leeds United do have, which I think other clubs round us don't have, and I think we deserve massive credit for this, is we have a serious fighting hunger, and we've got a home ground which is unbelievable. And a home crowd which is just off the scale good. We've every single game that's been played at past 8 o'clock home to Ellen Road this season, we have won every single time. There is something in that. Ellen Road after 8 p.m. and even the 5:30 games, I think we haven't lost at. But definitely from 8 p.m. onwards, it's unbelievable. Our home atmosphere is dragging us through games at this moment in time, and that's a credit to all of us who go to games and have been to games this season. That we are helping this team stay in the division at this moment in time with the way that we roar them on in every single game. And you look at sort of West Ham and the lack of atmosphere that they can create, and their poor home form that's sort of been contributed to that. And I think there's massive credit deserved to I genuinely do think if Leeds stay up this season, credit goes to the Leeds United fans who will go to every single game, and even the one that go to the odd game like I've been doing this season, and cheer on the boys, because it's paying a huge dividends in terms of on the pitch, in my opinion. I really think the 12-man thing is showing complete dividends, which we know Ellen Road's always going to be that, but it's so important for newly promoted teams, and we've got a real advantage that most newly promoted teams don't have, in terms of we've just got unbelievable support at home, and that's obviously because of who we are, which is fantastic. But I do think that's helping us massively. I really do. Because I don't think we've got individual quality of the likes of a Jared Bowen in our team. I don't think we've got that. But that's, as I said, that doesn't mean you're going to go down. It doesn't mean that. Football is a team game. That's why we won the title in '92. Too many people are ignorant of that fact. I didn't watch us in '92, mate, so I can't confess. I'd be in minus numbers. So, but you're right. Football is a team game, and I think, and obviously at this moment, we are a better team than West Ham. But when you've not got the individual quality of other teams, you've got to make up for it in other factors, and this is home atmosphere. This is a different style of play compared to other teams. This is sort of the team spirit that we've got, the fight in the team, all this stuff combined makes up a team. It's not just individuals, and you're right in that, Easy. And as I said, that is also playing into the reason that Leeds United, for me, are doing well at this moment in time, but it's also fundamentally the reason why I'm not fully there yet with definitely staying up. I'm not there yet, if I'm being honest. Richard says, Farke's teams traditionally aren't good until after about 12 games. Yeah, it's true, actually. We've not started well, really, under any season under Farke. Probably this season, actually, in terms of for the first few games. Obviously, we won Everton in the first game. We got a draw against Newcastle. We actually started quite well this season, better than we had done in previous seasons, but it did slow down a bit. But you're right, we've not traditionally started really well. I think the most surprising thing with Farke, though, for me, has been the way he's adapted. I mean, as someone who you guys know, I mean, we were having conversations daily about this, and you guys majority were trying to convince me that we should sack him, and I was probably of the opinion that we still shouldn't. Right to the end, I understood the reasoning, but I didn't want to do it. But even as someone who, as I said, was Daniel Farke in the whole time, I still am surprised at how the level of change that we've seen from Farke and the level of difference in style of play. I didn't think we would ever get to the point where we were this direct, and where we were this physical, and where we were playing so against Daniel Farke's principles and how he wants to play football in terms of possession-based style. I mean, we couldn't be further from Daniel Farke's principles and his style of play and Farke ball, however you want to say it, than we are at this moment in time. We're miles away from it, and I never thought we'd get to this, if I'm being totally honest. And I thought it might end up taking a new manager to get to this level of this difference in style. And I'm amazed at how it's working, but also that he's actually gone to this extreme, because we are so extreme down this route at this moment. And the Crystal Palace game, more than any game, summed that up in the way we played. That is as sort of away, as I said, from the Crystal Palace game is so away from Daniel Farke's principles, and I said Farke ball, that I'm amazed we're here. I really am. And it's working. It's working completely well. We are now playing direct, which is not defensive. It depends how you play it, mate, but fundamentally, you're not wrong. It's just a different way of building out. John Pepper says, 1 month ago, the so-called Leeds fans wanted Farke sacked. I understood that, mate. I'm not gonna say I didn't understand it, because I said it at the time. Wow, now he's in for manager of the month. So there goes the recruitment team. Let him down in forward position. I'm not sure fully what you mean there. I just think we were going through a bad moment, really, and I don't think Daniel Farke was doing well at that moment, and he wasn't adapting well. But I was still hoping it could work, and I didn't think he'd fundamentally done enough wrong at that moment, which is why I didn't want him out. But I am surprised, as I said, I am surprised at the change. I really am. Fluid formations, Daniel Farke, DF is revelation. Easy says, a good team is more than the sum of its parts. Leeds have a squad full of experience. We aren't relying on kids. That's why we're strong. Yeah, but we haven't got a lot of young players in the team. But I think young players can be really good as well. I don't think fundamentally it's all about experience. I think it's nice to have your experienced leaders, and I think it's always really nice to have an experienced spine. And I think Leeds have that in a roundabout way. Like, you look at Calvert-Lewin, you look at Ethan Ampadu, you look at Rodon, Strauch, Biol and Perry in goal even. I think in terms of a leadership standpoint, I don't think he's an unbelievable goalkeeper, but in a leadership standpoint, he's really good. Because I do think in wide areas, out wide, you can have litters of young players, and I think a mixed approach between the two it can be really effective. But fundamentally, I don't think you need a full team of experience, but I think you need experienced players throughout the team and in key areas. And I think Leeds have obviously got that. Like, as I said, Ampadu's impact on this team for me is just, I will always understand why he picks him every week and why he's argued with the first player on the team sheet. Because for me, in terms of a leadership standpoint, he's fantastic for this Leeds team. He really is. He is so important. And as I said, he's doing brilliant as well in terms of an individual performance level at this moment as well. So for me, he's massively important. Anyway, let's move on. We've talked a bit about it anyway, but let's move on and talk more in depth about sort of this West Ham situation. Because obviously we are talking about the relegation sort of battle update. My feeling regarding this relegation battle, regarding West Ham and this relegation battle, because I want to talk mainly about them, is they've obviously got these 4 games, which we've talked about on this channel for a few weeks now. They've got Fulham at home, they've got Brighton at home, they've got Wolves away, and they've got Nottingham Forest at home. In that time, of course, Leeds United have got Sunderland away, we have got Anfield, we've got Man United at home, and we've got Newcastle away. If you look at them on paper, they've got miles better fixtures than we have. We've got 3 away games. We know Leeds United traditionally not particularly good away. I know we got that good point at Brentford, but we're miles better at home than we are away. I think everyone will understand that. So, and in the away games, we've got all the teams we're playing are in the top 10 going in, except Newcastle, I think. But Newcastle away, as we know, are fantastic away from home. They're just not as good at home, away, should I say. So I'm looking at it going, let's see where we're at after these 4 games. Let's see where we're at. If we can maintain a 6-point gap between these next 6 games, somehow, that'll be unbelievable. If we can keep this 6-point gap after these 4 games that they've got and we've got, if we can somehow keep the 6-point gap, that will be unbelievable work from Leeds. Even if we can't do that, and even if it goes down to 0 points and we're level on points after these games and they make 6 points up in the next 4, I don't think we're in the worst position in the world either. Because I look at their games, you can only play Fulham at home once, you can only play Brighton at home once, you can only play Wolves twice, you can only play Forest at home once. And these games now getting ticked off for West Ham after they've played earlier in the season. So I don't think it's the worst situation that they've got these games now. And as I said, if Leeds United can get to a point where we keep some sort of a gap, or even just don't go below them after these next 4, we'll be in a really strong position. Really strong position. It will probably mean that Leeds United have got some really good scalps as well. Maybe we've beaten Man United at home. Maybe we've got 3 points at Sunderland. That would be fantastic if Leeds United could do that. So yeah, the one thing I will say about this as well is because I think, as I said, a lot has been made about these 4 fixtures that West Ham have got coming up, and obviously for them it's vital that they pick up points. I'm quite glad they've got a run like this coming up now, and the reason I'm glad they've got this run coming up now is, first of all, these games will not be affected then by the January transfer window, because by the time they've done the business, brought them into the team, these games will have already been played. I know they're in the January transfer window, but they're not going to be able to buy someone on the 1st of January and they're going to play in any of these games. It's not going to happen. So that's good news fundamentally for Leeds, that's the case. The other benefit I've got is, because they play them right now, they're in a really bad vein of form at this moment. I think they've won 2 in 12 under Nuno since he's come in, and they're not playing well. So it's nice that they've got really good fixtures that they've got to win when they're not playing well, because of the lack of confidence, they might not get the results they would have got if they're at any point on a good run at this moment. And the final reason I like it is because, and I think this is a huge point as well, when you've got loads of games coming up, when you've got to try get points in back to back, all these games flying in where it's like points here, and they're like 3 games apart, which we know this period is mad. I think they play something like the 27th, the 1st, the 4th, and the 7th, something like that. So they're all just spread. They've got like 4 games in like 12 days or something ridiculous. And when you've got to get serious points in them games, you can't rest players for any game. You've got to go full strength in every game, and you've got to see how it goes. And actually, Leeds United, with the fixtures we have, obviously Anfield, realistically, is probably going to be, with the greatest respect to free hit, that's going to be a hard game for Leeds United to get points in, of course. So I look at it and go, worst case scenario, we get beat down at Liverpool, and we don't play maybe a full strength team, and then you go into the Man United game full strength, and you just fly at them, and we'll be ready, and we'll be more up for it than Man United, because we'll be fresher than Man United, because we could have maybe rest a few players at Liverpool, do something like that. West Ham can't do that, because they've got to get points in all these games, and I do think that's a huge benefit. That is a huge benefit for me. Easy says, we've played Man City, Chelsea and Liverpool. We have no reason to fear anyone. No, we don't. But we've also got to look at games, obviously, that are most likely for Leeds United to pick up points in. And I think we'd all accept, for me, that Man United at home is a much better opportunity for Leeds to pick up points in than potentially Anfield. We need to start building a strong youth squad, competent with the 25-man squad system. Yeah, we do. And I think we've obviously made strides for that. So we're looking at a player at the moment, I think, from Liverpool. I think Harry Grace signing a new contract was massive for that as well. So I agree with you, Richard. We've got to bring in we've got to be better at youth development of the football club, I think, definitely. Sebastian says, I think we focus too much on West Ham. Get more points on the board and bring other teams into relegation. But I agree with this. I do agree with this. It's more because Forest and obviously Forest and Fulham are playing at this moment. I don't want to talk too much about it, because truthfully, for people watching afterwards, there's not really much relevance. They're definitely in it. I think Forest will be absolutely fine. I think Fulham are definitely in it, though, in my opinion. I think Brentford are as well. But West Ham are the one that's interesting, because obviously they've got something that's massive for them and their season, these next 4 games, which is why the show's sort of naturally going towards them. But I do agree with you, Sebastian. I don't really want it to just be Leeds versus West Ham for the third spot. I don't think that's good for us in any shape or form. I think it's important that we drag as many teams in as possible. So if anyone has a blip, or has a bad sort of second half of the season, they can go down rather than just being it's West Ham or bust. So I do agree with you, but I think obviously they're the ones that have, as I said, they've got the most relevance at this moment because they've got these really sort of good games. So as I said, for me, right now, I'm looking at it and going, on the 8th of January, let's see where Leeds United are at, because this table could change quite dramatically if we don't get results, which I think, as I said, with the tricky games that we've got, Newcastle away is tricky. It will be really tricky for us. Liverpool away will be really tricky. I think Sunderland away are tricky. And if Man United turn up on the day, I know that they're a weird, really weird club, Man United, and they could be absolutely awful or brilliant against us. But if they come up and not quite on it, I think we can beat Man United. But it's not, look, if they play the best game, they probably should beat us in terms of the quality that they've got. So it's going to be, they're all going to be tricky games, of course. But as I said, I'm just looking at it going, let's get to 8th of January and see where we're at. And if Leeds United are still out of the bottom three, and if we've got a little bit of a buffer on West Ham, we are then really in a brilliant position. And then hopefully we can get to the end of the March, which I've talked about so much time. We can get to the end of March and we're not in the bottom three, and we've even got a little bit of a buffer. We've got a really nice last 10 games. And if we're out of the relegation zone with 10 games to go, we should stay up then, because the last 10 games, in that time, I think we've got Burnley at home, we've got Wolves at home, we've got, I think, Brentford at home. We've got loads of really nice games at the end of the season that where we should pick up points in. So if Leeds United, as I said, when we get to March, are out of the bottom three, we should stay up then. We should stay up. Anyway, that's all for me. Now, I hope you've enjoyed the show. As always, if you could help the channel by dropping a like, obviously subscribe, all that good stuff. Fantastic, and I will see you tomorrow for some more, obviously, talk around Leeds United. I'm not sure how it's going to work. I know there's going to be a video on Christmas Day. I'm going to film with someone tomorrow for that, but I'll talk a bit more about that tomorrow. But I don't know fully how the schedule is going to work over Christmas, but I will let you know over the last three. Fine, I'll get the final comment in for easy, and then we'll wrap up the show. The only reason we're not near the bottom three is because of the way we're set up post the half against Man City. I agree. I think that was obviously a change in half. And since then, mate, truthfully, we've been undefeated, haven't we? We've won 2 and drawn 2 against some really good teams. I think Brentford away, massive. Obviously, Liverpool and Chelsea speak for themselves. And Crystal Palace, obviously, we know the best away record in the league. So you are right. Anyway, thanks all for watching, as always, and I shall see you tomorrow, back again here at 8 PM.